No, we are not all created equal, at least not if you are born in, as the president put it, a whole country.
The word house instead of whole, as in house countries, not whole countries.
I guess he's a holer.
Is there a difference if the president said whole or house?
Do you think these countries are holes?
Donald Trump has turned the Oval Office into a hole.
Holers built this country 110 years ago.
In addition to the president's comments yesterday.
Now, today is no different. The compulsive coverage just continues during the White House press briefing. And, of course, Press Secretary Sarah Sanders responding to all of this, a pretty powerful rebuttal. Let's take a look.
Unfortunately, the individuals in this room continue to create a large platform for somebody they know not to have a lot of credibility, for someone they frankly refused to give a platform to when they worked here at the White House. It wasn't until this individual started to negatively attack this president and this administration and try to tear this entire place down that she received the type of platform and rollout that she's getting. I think it would be great if every single person in this room and every single person in the administration never had to talk about this again, and we actually got to focus on the real policies and the real things that not matter just to people in this building, but certainly all Americans, African Americans, Hispanics, and everybody in between. I think that would be the best thing that we could certainly do for our country.
And tonight, our friends at the Media Research Center, they're backing up what you just heard from Sarah Sanders. Their research shows that during their broadcast last night, the morning shows, today, ABC, CBS, NBC, they dedicated approximately 344% more time covering Omarosa than they did covering the firing of FBI agent Peter Strzok. That's more than triple the reporting for salacious rumors over what is serious news about what is a corrupt, high-ranking FBI official fired because of his massive bias and corruption at the heart of everything from Hillary to General Flynn to the beginning of the Russia-Trump hoax. And today, as he often does, the president bypassed the partisan press in the country. He took his message right to you, the American people. He tweeted out, quote, "Fired FBI agent Peter Strzok is a fraud, as is the rigged investigation that he started. There was no collusion or obstruction with Russia, and everybody, including the Democrats, know it. The only collusion and obstruction was by crooked Hillary, the Democrats, the DNC. And tonight, a new report is now bolstering the president's claim. Real Clear Investigations. They're showing serious questions now being raised about Fusion GPS founder Glenn Simpson and the shadowy Russian figures who attended the now infamous 2016 Trump Tower meeting. By the way, Robert Mueller, if you're looking for potential Russia collusion, we've got more. It's all right here. And we all know Fusion GPS was employed by the DNC and the Clinton campaign. They paid them ultimately to dig up what ended up being Russian dirt on then candidate Donald Trump. Tonight, there are new concerns over another client of Fusion GPS. Well, that's the Russian lawyer who attended that meeting that everyone's been talking about. She utilized Simpson's services to lobby against Russian sanctions. This plot just keeps thickening. And according to testimony, she had dinner with Simpson both before and after the Trump Tower meeting. Sounds like a setup to me. And because Simpson's relationship with that Kremlin-tied lawyer, a Chicago financier named William Browder, was, quote, so concerned about Fusion GPS's work on behalf of Russian interests that in July of 2016, he actually lodged a complaint with the DOJ. Let me put it simply. Clinton's op research firm, Fusion GPS, was working on behalf of the DNC, Hillary Clinton, and also Russian-backed interests. So that's right. It's all literally represented by the same person, Glenn Simpson. Now, that's exactly as sketchy as it sounds. But where's the hysteria from the media? This is about stealing a presidential election, lying to the American people with phony Russian information that is paid for by the opposition party candidate and then used for a FISA warrant. Where's the special counsel investigation? Oh, it's not really an investigation into collusion now, is it? It's a partisan witch hunt against the president. And frankly, you, the American people, have seen through this and have had enough. Even fake news CNN has a poll that shows, that's right, 2/3 of you, the American people, are now calling for Robert Mueller to wrap this garbage up. And this comes as the trial of the century may soon be coming to an end. After 11 days, the defense rested in the bank and tax fraud case of Paul Manafort from 2005. They didn't bother calling a single witness. Manafort's legal team apparently believes that the special counsel did not meet their burden, the burden of proof, and they may be right. According to analysis from a Northern Virginia criminal defense attorney, Team Mueller was not ready for prime time in Judge Ellis's courtroom. Quote, no matter how strong their evidence, how righteous their cause, how impressive their resumes may be and actually are, they simply have not done a very good job. And clearly Mueller has and was trying to turn the screws on Manafort. As Judge Ellis told us, he never wanted to go to trial. He just wanted Manafort to sing or to compose so that Mueller could give up something or make up something, anything, to then either prosecute or impeach Donald Trump. And despite Team Mueller's poor performance in court, sadly for Manafort, the odds are stacked against him. The vast majority of federal cases result in a guilty verdict, over 90%. This case, for the record, and maybe we'll get even as early as Thursday of this week, a verdict. This case has nothing to do with collusion, nothing to do with Donald Trump, nothing to do with Russia, nothing to do with the election at all. Rod Rosenstein's mandate allowed this. And meanwhile, what do we have? Hillary Clinton committing multiple serious felonies, crimes, mishandling top secret information. She obstructed justice when she deleted, of course, subpoenaed emails, washed her hard drives with bleach bit, washed them away so they can never be found again. Broke up her devices with hammers, fixed and rigged an investigation with Steele's dirty dossier. Remember, that was full of Russian lies, and it was peddled to you, the American people. Why? Because they wanted to misinform you, to steal an election. That's called propaganda, misinformation, outright lying to the American people. And that information was then presented to 4 separate FISA court judges as, quote, credible evidence. Nobody had ever literally verified any of it, corroborated any of it. Nobody's been indicted, investigated by Team Mueller regarding Clinton's dirty Russian dossier. This is a disgrace to America's system of justice. And frankly, if we're going to be blunt and honest here, it is a clear and danger to our clear and present danger to our constitutional republic. Now, make no mistake, Manafort's found guilty, your media will have a brand new obsession. Stormy, stormy, stormy. Blank hole, blank hole, blank hole. Russia, 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 Russia. Oh, and then, of course, Omarosa, Omarosa. And again, we'll be forced to call them out for their shameless, Christless peddling. Yeah, journalism in America is dead. But the real fear ought to be whether or not we have a justice system that applies equal justice under the law, equal application of our laws. This is really about Russia. Why are we dealing with a 2005 tax case not related to the campaign or Russia or Donald Trump at all? Why aren't we investigating the dirty dossier with Russian lies that were peddled to the American people? Why aren't we investigating FISA court judges that were absolutely a fraud was perpetrated on their courts with Russian lies? What about Adam Schiff, Shifty Schiff? And he's talking to Russians on the phone. We played it for you. And what does he want? Dirt on Donald Trump. And now we got Fusion GPS, Glenn Simpson meeting before and after with the client that met with Don Jr. and company at Trump Tower that the media's made so much of. And also Russia's a client of his also? You got to be kidding me. You couldn't put this in a spy novel and have people believe this. Here now, Fox News contributor Sarah Carter, civil rights criminal defense attorney David Schoen. Let's start with you, Sarah, and all these new developments. I think it's a big deal. We have a lot of new information that's been coming out as it relates to Bruce Orr, Fusion GPS founder Glenn Simpson. Now we see that he had another client, and that was Russia, a Russian client. And now we see that before and after the meeting at Trump Tower, he was meeting before and after with that client that was paying him.
Yes. So here you have people like James, like John Brennan, James Clapper, and others peddling complete and outright lies. These things have not been verified, saying that the Russians have information on Trump, that they can blackmail him, putting out this disinformation, not even misinformation, disinformation. And they're aiding Russia in this chaos. But on the other side, we have insurmountable evidence insurmountable evidence based on text messages, phone records, documents that, people like Natalia Veselnitskaya, who met at Trump Tower, were working for Prevezon Holdings, and guess who they hired? They hired Glenn Simpson at Fusion GPS. So she was connected directly to Glenn Simpson. She met with him before and after, just as you said. There is direct links to these people. And, that is where the actual truth is, Sean. This is the evidence that the people are not following, and they need to be following. And this is the reason why Congress and why the senators have been so adamant for calling a special counsel to investigate this. It is a complete injustice. And if you're looking at it on its face, we can see that there was actually a campaign to unseat a duly elected president. And unfortunately.
Exactly. That's why the Omarosa obsession, or the Stormy obsession, or whatever
exactly.
the blank hole obsession, whatever it is happens to be of the day. It's just, crisis peddling, but ignoring the biggest abuse of power and an attempt to literally steal a presidential election. And by the way, everyone seems to not care that we know the fix was in. Bernie never had a shot in the primary. Nobody ever seems to talk about that anymore. If I was a Democrat and I voted for Bernie, or I wanted Bernie to win, I'd be pretty pissed off.
Sean, I've spoken to a number of Democrats that are very angry about that, and they know the election was stolen. That's right.
This is the United States of America still, the last time I checked. All right, we're going to be bouncing back and forth. I want to ask you about Bruce Orr next, Sarah, but first I want to bring David into this. David, look, you've tried a lot of criminal cases here. I've used the example of Sammy the Bull Gravano. Sammy the Bull kills 19 people, but he gets a get-out-of-jail-free card if he testifies against person X, Y, or Z. And I'm thinking, okay, if I killed 19 people, I don't want to spend the rest of my life in jail. I killed people. It's not exactly like I have a moral compass at all. I'd say whatever you want me to say. Now, the lead prosecution witness in the Manafort case is his partner, Rick Gates. He's admitted liar, embezzler, cheat, involved in everything that supposedly Paul Manafort has done for the most part. He is their star witness who was facing 100 years in jail, and everybody else that testified got immunity. That sounds to me like, well, Mueller is basically bribing Rick Gates with a get-out-of-jail-free card. And frankly, I can't put any faith or credibility in anybody that gets off 100 years in jail, potentially.
Right. You've hit the nail on the head. This is the currency in which people like Andrew Weissman and Greg Andres, two lead prosecutors in the Manafort case, for example, have dealt their entire careers. They decide who should be telling the truth in the case, and if the story doesn't match from the informant that they would like it to be, they get rid of that person. They deep six them. If they're willing to play ball and say what Weissman and Andres and those sort of prosecutors want them to say, then they can play ball. But it's the defense lawyer's job to expose that to the jury. So the jurors should be as offended as you've indicated you are that a person who commits 19 murders, or in this case, white-collar crimes.
Maybe it comes down to the numbers in the accounting. I don't know. 95% of federal cases end up in guilty verdicts. So the odds are with Mueller.
Well, that's right. But remember, the government has all of the resources. You take a white-collar defendant who's never known anyone who spent a day in jail, and you put before him or her the prospect of going to jail or having a family member go to jail, and people like Weissman and Andres turn the screws to those family members. They plead guilty whether they're guilty or not. The American public may not believe that. It happens every day in our justice system.
But he got a complete get-out-of-jail-free card, and he was facing at least 100 years in jail. I can't put any credibility in what he says. He's an admitted embezzler.
You gave the example of Sammy the Bull. Those are murders. He was out on the street. Time served.
Unbelievable. All right, let me go back again. We're bouncing back and forth. Let's go to the Bruce Orr issue. And because Bruce Orr is so connected to the news tonight about Fusion GPS, having a Russian client, meeting both before and after the Trump Tower meeting. You know, the plot thickens every single day, and it literally is Russia, 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 but it's not what Mueller's doing, Sarah Carter.
Yeah, so, Mueller is not investigating all of these Russian connections with these players that were involved in trying to entrap President Trump or people within his campaign. They're continuing this saga, and they haven't shown us any proof that there was any guilt of collusion with the Russians with the campaign. But let's just go to Bruce Orr. We know that Bruce Orr was in communication with Christopher Steele, a former foreign British spy who was basically peddling Russian disinformation in into the FBI. Now, when the FBI realized that Christopher Steele was lying to them, that he had been meeting with the media and actually peddling that information for Glenn Simpson, who, remember, also worked for the Russians, to American media, the FBI fired him. But they wanted to continue propagating these lies. So Peter Strzok and the others who were in charge of these investigations went around Christopher Steele. They used Bruce Orr as a back channel. And his wife, Nellie Orr, just happened to be working for who? Glenn Simpson with Fusion GPS. Sean, there cannot be any more connect the dots than what we are seeing. And it's so unfortunate that we do not have a special...
By the way, 60 meetings between Steele and Orr at least.
70 at least. That is what I was told today. 70 at least, now that they've counted all of the Skype messaging back and forth. And remember, they were using it as a back channel. But what did they fail to do? The government failed, the FBI failed, and the DOJ to put that in the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court application that they issued on Carter Page.
How is it legally possible, David, that you've got all of this Russian evidence here on the other side, and they ignore it, and they go after a 2005 tax case? Has nothing to do with the election, Russia, the president, nothing. How did that mandate spread so wide by the guy that signed the fourth FISA warrant, which is Rod Rosenstein, which is so conflicting?
It's shocking. It's shocking. Look, let me just say, also in listening in here, you have all of the facts. No one else has spoke about Bruce Orr before you did. Sarah Carter is better than any special counsel could be in this case. The American people have to listen to these facts. You started these stories and you're following through. This is vitally important. How could it have happened? It's an abomination. This is the FISA court, the most secret court in the country.
A fraud was committed on the court.
Absolutely dangerous. Every American citizen is in danger.
I don't even think you could get me out of jail.